If you run a professional services firm, you've almost certainly heard the word utilization. You probably track it, and you almost certainly have a target for it. From what I've seen, though, most leaders in the field calculate utilization in a way that seems helpful, but actually only gives part of the picture. Many people mix up utilization with another metric that matters even more. In this video, I'm going to explain exactly what utilization rate is, how to calculate it correctly, what it does and what it does not tell you, and what else you should measure to truly understand how your firm is doing. My name is Mike Hiley. I'm a qualified chartered accountant with 30 years of experience of working in professional services. I've worked with small firms ranging from 15 people to large groups like Kantar and WPP. I've worked in finance, ops, and business transformation roles. This video is aimed at founders, principals, partners, and owners of professional services firms, like agencies, consultancies, architecture practices, PR firms, market research organizations. In fact, any business where the primary product is skilled time. If you're new to financial management in this sector, this will give you a solid foundation. If you've been running a firm for years, I want to offer you a more precise framing than the one that most people use. The utilization rate measures the proportion of the available working time that your people spend on billable work. That is the core definition. The formula is pretty straightforward. Billable hours divided by available hours times 100. Available hours is the working time in a period, usually calculated as working days multiplied by standard hours per day. In most firms, we're talking about 7.5, 8 hours a day, minus any booked leave. And minus booked leave is really important. Billable hours is the time logged against client projects. Work that's either directly charged against clients or forms deliverable of the engagement. Let me give you an example. If somebody has 40 available hours in a week and logs 32 hours of work to the client, their utilization rate is 80%. That is the number that most firms will track. And it's a reasonable starting point. But there are two problems that come up consistently with how it gets applied. First error is including non-billable client time in the billable hours figure. Some firms will count all the time spent on client-related activities as billable. We're talking about internal calls about the client, rework, over-servicing, and time spent on managing scope disputes. That inflates the utilization number. So a person can appear to be at 85% utilization while actually only spending 65% of that time or their time on work that the client will actually pay for. The correct approach is to only treat the time as billable when it directly relates to a client deliverable. Everything else, including rework, internal meetings, pitch time, and admin, well, that belongs in a non-billable category. This time can and absolutely should be logged against the client, but just not as billable time. This gives you a much more honest picture. Also, let me give you a pro tip on how to communicate utilization targets to employees. Give them a target number of billable hours per week and not a percentage, because they'll find 32 hours of billable time easier to understand and manage than, oh, well, you need to meet 80% utilization. The second mistake is using the number of employees instead of the actual hours that they have available. Some firms use this shortcut to calculate utilization. They'll divide billable hours by the number of employees and then apply a standard hours assumption. The problem is that the available hours will vary by person, by role, and by period. For example, people take leave. Part-time roles will have obviously different capacities, and new joiners will have less availability than when during their onboarding. A more accurate approach is to calculate available hours at the individual level and then aggregate upwards rather than trying to apply a blanket approach across the whole team. That said, even when calculated correctly, utilization rate has a significant blind spot. It tells you how your people's time is occupied, but it does not tell you what that time is worth. A team can be at 85% utilization and still generate poor margins. And here's why. Firstly, utilization does not distinguish between work at different billing rates. A senior consultant who bills at a higher rate helps maintain margin much more than a junior analyst who bills at a lower rate, even if they have the same utilization. The utilization number treats all billable hours as equal, but margin does not. Those of you who are regular viewers to this channel will probably guess what the second one is. Utilization does not capture realization. The realization rate measures how much of your billable time is actually converted to revenue that the client will pay for. If a project is fixed price and the team works more hours than were planned, those extra hours show up in utilization, but they generate zero additional revenue. Realization drops, margin erodes, while the utilization number looks fine. The realization rate is calculated as revenue billed divided by billable hours at the standard rate and then multiplied by 100. A firm with 80% utilization and 75% realization is performing quite differently from one with 80% utilization and 95% realization. The utilization number is identical, but the financial outcome is not. The one with 95% realization is doing way better in terms of margin. Utilization targets vary by firm and by type and by role, but there are some general principles that hold across most professional services businesses. Billing staff or more junior staff in delivery roles will typically have targets ranging between 75 and 85%. Lower than 75% often suggests either a capacity surplus, in other words, there are too many staff, or too much work that isn't billable and isn't tracked separately. Higher than 90%, sustained over time, creates quality and retention risks. That's because people cannot operate near full capacity indefinitely without affecting the quality of their work and their willingness to stay, to be perfectly blunt. Senior roles typically carry lower utilization rates. We're talking the range of 50 to 65%, and that's to reflect the time that those individuals spend on business development, internal management, client relationship activities that are not directly billed. Leadership and management roles should not be measured primarily on utilization because their contribution is the decisions they make and the work that they direct, not the hours they personally log to client projects. The target for any specific firm will depend on several factors: its service model, its billing structure, and the mix between senior and junior roles. It's more important to know why your target is set at a certain level and keep tracking it over time, and not just try and meet a specific number. To bring this all together, the utilization rate shows you what proportion of the person's available time is spent on work that can be billed to clients. It's a helpful way to see how well people's time is being used. But to really understand what's going on, you also need to look at the realization rate and how much profit each project actually makes. I cover professional services finance on this channel every week. The metrics, the frameworks, and the practical tools that will help you to understand what your numbers are clearly. If this was useful, please do like and comment. And also please do subscribe. Thank you.